started writing a school book some years ago. Got up to 8 chapters now, so I thought for a bit of a laugh, I'd put the first chapter on YouTube. The book's entitled Jack Harrison, The Scourge of Culverdale High. Harrison, stop fooling about this instant. The familiar cry of Miss Wyvern, long-suffering French teacher at Culverdale High School for Boys, echoed around the classroom, much to the amusement of other pupils who regarded their fellow classmate as a bit of a nuisance, although they could not help laughing at his antics. Jack Harrison, 14 years old, wearing a grey pullover and black trousers, the uniform of Culverdale High School for Boys, had taken to whipping one of the others on the back with a piece of rope. Miss Wyvern, a short thin lady in her early 20s, was forever scolding the disrupted teenager over his behaviour, or rather the lack of it. "Sit down or I will send you to see Mr. Burbage." This threat had an immediate effect, because the boy refrained from whipping his unfortunate classmate and, grinning from ear to ear, sat down. The year was 1972. It was late July, a week before the end of term and the school festival, an idea brought about by Mr. Donald Pritchett, headmaster of Culverdale High, a tall, grey-haired, thin man who relied on the discipline of his assistant head, Bartholomew Burbage, in order to hold things together. Burbage was a strict disciplinarian of the old school, and you could often hear the swish of the cane as you passed his study. Jack could often be spotted standing in the corridor waiting for 6 of the best. Jack was a peculiar lad. His main interest seemed to be hanging around the local common. What he did there nobody really knew, but he would often come to school full of stories about people he had seen over there. He even had nicknames for these poor unfortunates, like Black Bob, Runner, and Dirty Annie. Who these people were, it was hard to imagine, but in Jack's mind they became some sort of local celebrities who were often talked about throughout the whole school, and woe betide any of these poor souls if they happened to pass the building, for Jack would shout obscenities at them from a first-floor classroom window, thus annoying the teachers and creating mayhem. Jack was also responsible for causing the rather large dent in the roof of Mr. Turner's car. After a chase through the school building one lunchtime, he ended up in the gym, a dead end, and unfortunately made his escape by jumping through an open window, landing on the roof of the Sportsmasters Hillman Avenger. "Harrison, what the hell are you doing?" the PE teacher bellowed, eyes popping out like organ stops and getting redder and redder in the face with fury. "Get off my car at once! You've dented the roof, you stupid boy!" Needless to say, the swishing of Mr. Burbage's cane was soon heard from behind his study door. Culverdale High was a typical South London comprehensive. I suppose the most popular lesson was games, and there was little desire for learning amongst its 600 pupils. There were, however, some exceptions, for Stephen Langley was a keen musician. He was studying the oboe under the watchful eye of Mr. Charles Trout, music master at Culverdale High. Trout was a short, stocky, impatient man who used to smoke and play jazz records at break times. He would invariably attempt to play along to them on the piano, usually hitting some wrong notes or being ahead or behind the music. All in all, he was a bit of a sadist, but he had his favourites, and Langley was definitely one of them. The tall, bespectacled young man, however, rarely got a chance to practice with Jack and his cronies assembled outside the music room window. "Hey, look! There's the SWAT in the music room!" Jack would gleefully cry, waving his arms in the air as if conducting an orchestra. Go away, Langley would shout. "I'll tell Mr. Trout. You're a load of idiots. Go away, go away." One lunchtime, Trout suddenly appeared, a pained look on his face as if he had a bad stomachache. "Harrison, get away from that window and take your mates with you," he shouted. Trout was the doyen of music masters. He always wore the same suit, light grey, pinstriped, always a carnation in the buttonhole. He would pace the school corridors in between music lessons looking for pupils who were bunking off, the term used for skipping lessons, and those who were unlucky enough to be caught usually ended up outside Burbage's study. Jack and his friends swiftly left the vicinity of the music room and started to walk towards the building's main entrance, with the intention of terrorising a rather unfortunate young man named Derek Wood, who was the underdog of the third year. He was a weakling who constantly picked his nose, thus becoming a prime target for bullies, especially the boys from the other side of town, one of which was named Harry Davies, a tall lad with black hair. He was the school bully and feared by many of his peers. That evening, unbeknown to Jack, there was an ambush planned. Barry Collins, a sworn enemy of Jack's, was tired of Jack's continual ribbing of his friend, a curly-haired lad named Stuart Jones, whom Jack had nicknamed the Kangaroo. Jones had found out that Jack had been putting it around that he and Collins had been stealing food from the vending machine store, which was situated in the school grounds. Collins had therefore taken great pleasure in declaring war on Jack, and he and his gang had planned to lure him to a nearby alleyway to teach him a lesson. After the ambush, Jack, humiliated by the fact that Collins had the upper hand, decided to form a gang of his own. This was all very well and good, except he did not realise that his best friend David Burke was also in Collins' gang and therefore a double agent. The feud between Jack and Collins had started a year earlier, with Jack belittling Collins' old school, Wood Middle. "Here comes one of the idiots from the moron school," he would shout gleefully. "You're a load of pansies." "Go and do one, Jack. I'm sick of you ribbing me in front of the others. Why can't you keep your mouth shut? You're asking for trouble," Collins had replied. Trouble had previously arrived one sunny evening after lessons had finished, for Collins and his friend Mark Crooks had blocked the school gates and marched Jack, alone, out of the school, up the road, to the same alleyway by a derelict laundry. "Just want to ask you some questions, Jack. Bit of friendly persuasion too," Collins uttered as they reached the spot where the showdown was about to commence. "You pack it in, Jack, and keep your mouth shut," shouted Collins as he punched Jack in the stomach. "Just about had enough of you." Jack began to run, with Collins in hot pursuit, kicking out at Jack's legs. "You keep on running, yeah, you keep on running and get out of my sight." The showdown over, Jack had limped home disheartened, but he was already plotting revenge. The morning following the July ambush, Jack and his gang were approached by Collins and his circle of friends, and he was as polite as one could be to his enemy. "What do you call me?" asked Collins, aggressively. "No nicknames, I hope." "Barry," replied Jack. "Let bygones be bygones." Collins was rather taken aback by this. He was not at all sure what to do, but little did he know that Jack was already in the throes of wreaking revenge on his arch-enemy. The following day the festival began, so there were no lessons. There was plenty to see and do during the event, including film shows, exhibitions and demonstrations in the woodwork and metalwork rooms. Stamp collections and model railways were also on display. The biology room played host to a film show where the infamous Davis and his associates press-ganged those who happened to be passing into watching short home movies made by and starring themselves. Nobody dared refuse their invitation. The rogues, as they were billed, were indeed delighted with the attention they received, and Jack and his friends were glad when it was all over, and made their way with haste to the chess room. Not with the intention of playing chess, they couldn't even understand the game, but to play cards and generally mess about. Chess was always the soft option to the gym, where Mr. Turner would put them through their paces, and Jack and his friends were not the least athletic. Anyway, throwing chess pieces out of the window seemed much more fun. Within a few days the long summer holidays finally arrived, and Jack and his friends were at a loss of what to do. It seemed that time away from Culverdale High, with the absence of the teachers to annoy, things seemed rather flat. But then there was still a score to settle with Collins, and Jack was determined to plan his revenge before the new term began.